Hi, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Holistic Pillars. And today we are welcoming Amy Huebner from Hushabye Baby. And Amy is a sleep consultant. Hi, Amy, and welcome.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Um, what a fantastic subject, sleep consultant. What exactly is actually, I'll back a bit. Tell me a bit about you. Tell me a bit about all about you.
Okay, all right. Um, so I'm a mum of three young boys. We're living in country Victoria. I'm from Sydney myself, so a bit of a city slicker. So it's taken a bit of an adjustment for me to live out. We're in semi-rural here, but we've got lots of space. We've got the dogs. So the boys love it. It's been a fabulous place for them, and I'm really grateful for the space. I really miss the coast because I'm a coastal city slicker. So I grew up in the beaches in Sydney. So it's been a transition, but to be honest, I haven't really been back to Sydney to live since my late 20s. So I've been traveling a lot before I ended up here in Victoria. And we have a pretty quiet life, really. Very busy in terms of keeping the boys active and doing all their things and making sure that they're happy and doing their sports and things like that. I'm loving that. So I settled, I guess, later in life, and I'm loving the settledness of it all and going to the sports games and things like that. So that's really it. That's kind of our focus at the moment. They're a handful. Don't really get to do too many things outside of that. It's really very family focused at the moment. But we are going tomorrow to Phillip Island for a week for
Oh,
a little
nice.
family vacay. So for me to just go to the ocean, I'm just going to be in heaven. So I can't wait for that. So that's kind of the really special thing for me, I guess. Just
And
being
you
able to
now have,
take some time.
and you'll have your family time and a break from the routine in a lot of ways with
Yeah,
Christmas rush.
yeah. And the boys are just so excited. Like they literally just count down days till we go and do those things. So yes, they're very happy in their routine type life, I guess, but they always love a bit of time away doing different things. So they can't wait either. So I'm hoping it's not just hectic, family life in a different location. I'm hoping that I get a little bit of R&R, walks on the beach, just fill my cup. So
Right.
yeah, it's a bit about me.
So transitioning into Hushabye Baby, which is the name of your business, and sleep consulting. So your journey into that. So what was your career? What's your background and
Yeah.
training and getting into Hushabye?
Well, when I first started working, I went to college after school rather than uni. I did college and I went into tourism. So that's where I initially started. And so I was like 18, 19 at the time and specializing in bringing internationals into Australia and New Zealand. So I did a lot of travel around our country. So, like in my early 20s, I was traveling a lot and experiencing everything that Australia had to offer. I loved it. I was so fortunate to do that. I ended up moving into the corporate world from that point. I became like a corporate travel consultant within a large IT company, again in Sydney. And what ended up happening is that IT is cutthroat. And I was witnessing so many retrenchments happening, redundancies, and people literally just getting tapped on the shoulder, told to put their stuff in a box, walked down to the lobby and said, sorry, mate. Like not even like a exit interview or and everybody, like the morale was so terrible, like you could feel it, it was thick, and just that whole experience, it led me into human resources. So that's where I moved for quite a few years. So I ended up going to TAFE, New South Wales, and doing a diploma in business, human resources. And I ended up leaving that role and thankfully got a really good role at a really large insurance company that was aligned with my studies. So I was there, I was doing that part-time and study part-time. Now, unfortunately, my mum was really, really unwell during those times, and I really struggled to focus on anything actually. Like everything seemed to be stressful. Any decision I could make, I was just not coping very well. And mum got very sick with ovarian cancer, and it was a really horrible, horrible disease to watch. And I really was one of her sole carers, and that was a lot of pressure. So I ended up stopping work, not working, and I did try to finish my study though at that time. Thankfully I managed to, like I was at the tail end and I managed to get that done, thankfully. But then I spent time with my mum, and unfortunately she died. And that was just a real turning point, I guess, in my life. Pretty much broke me. I don't think I even really talked about it for like 2 years. It was just really hard. She was a single mum. She brought myself and my brother up. So I ended up, and I had a long-term partner at the time, and we ended up traveling after that. So I kind of left Australia, was gone for about 6 years, and came back after a stint in South Africa where I just really loved conservation, really got into that. So I went back to I went to university when I came back in my 30s. So I did some university, did some wildlife conservation, still love that, love it. But funnily enough, when I had my children, again, priorities change. Things come to light as to what is, you know, what keeps you going, what makes kind of parenthood manageable, and things, you know, just your priorities change. And so I then ended up having this kind of, and I always loved sleep, by the way. Like I was a massive sleeper. Like I always loved a good night's sleep. People used to joke, like, you could never have kids, Amy. Like, honestly, like, how would you? Like, you are not going to be able to sleep in like you do, and all this. So, and that actually used to play on my mind a bit, but you really realize the importance of it when you have children, because you can see how they are when they don't get their sleep, let alone how grumpy you are when you don't. So I think that kind of started my interest in well-being of families, like how to balance doing work and looking after your children, being present for them. When it came time to go back to work, I just didn't know how I was going to do that. I was like, how am I going to be able to pick up the children and then go and be able to go and do a job at the same time? Like, it's hard enough to get part-time work, let alone flexible hours. So I had all these thoughts in my mind about when it's coming to time of me starting again, how I'm going to do it. And then funnily enough, I got this email at this round about the same time from the #2 sleep trainer in the States. So she's Canadian. Her name's Dana Obelman. And she developed this program called the Sleep Sense program. She was a teacher. She went on maternity leave. She had a crap experience with her firstborn. And after she managed to just turn things around and get everybody sleeping, she was like, I need to tell other people about this. I need to tell other parents about this. So back then, sleep training was quite taboo. And she decided, I'm not going to go back to teaching. I'm going to develop this program and I'm going to teach it to parents. So yeah, she just randomly was coming to Australia and was looking for a small group of people to teach this Sleep Sense program to. And I must have been on a mailing list or something. Who knows how that happens half the time. So And I was like, yep, I'm doing it. So she was coming, I think it was the week after, coming to Melbourne. It was a week where we were doing this face-to-face, like every day, seminars, conferencing type, webinar type situation. And I was there for it, and it was the best thing ever. I just loved it, loved every minute of it. It felt so natural to me. We just connected on the same philosophy around how important sleep is, how amazing our little people are and what they're capable of, and us just learning on how to allow them to be so capable. So that was that. Literally, it's really your decision what you do beyond that.
Yeah.
Like I remember her saying in that class that probably about 20% of you will be successful with this, because you've literally got to go and develop your own business. You run it however you like to run it. We still have mentoring, educational, like monthly educational webinars by experts, like it's just forever. So we're all part of a group where you know, we're very resourceful. We've got a lot of knowledge behind us and a lot of support. But with your business, it's up to you on how you want to run it, and also whether you're going to be successful or not. And I think in my mind, failure just wasn't an option. So I was like, right, I'm going to do this. I know how important this is, and I know how there's such a gap of people being able to get support with sleep with their young children. So I just went for it, and it's been amazing. It's just, you know, there's so many people that need it. So it's been very busy. I've been so fortunate, and I love it. Been doing it for 7 years now.
So Hushabye was created, and your target, so is it from newborns to a certain age?
Yeah, newborns to about 5-year-olds, but to be honest, 5 to 7-year-olds are very similar. So yeah, roughly about newborns to 5-year-olds is the main area that I work in.
So I want to get into how this works, like in the house, and people come to you and seeking advice on some tips on how to do that. But, you know, we obviously need to know that the detrimental effects of not getting enough sleep on obviously individuals and the whole family.
Yep.
And also then if we don't have a family that's sleeping well, obviously the knock-on effect is parents in the workplace, or you know, the whole family in a little bit of turmoil. So how do people engage with you, and then how do you work with the families, and what are you looking for when it comes to the kids?
Okay, so my kind of bread and butter of Hushabye Baby are the families. So the way families find me, so a lot of it is referral. I'd probably say about 80% is referral. So they've found me somehow, whether it was Facebook, Instagram. When I first started, I was doing a few like Facebook ads and things like that. I would go to some of the markets. I'd approach like motherhood meetings, like newborn meetings, parenthood meetings, and go and have a chat with them about sleep. So that's kind of how it started in the very beginning. And then it just runs on pretty much referrals and word of mouth. So, you know, Betty worked with me, and then she tells her group in her mother's group, you know, or a sister-in-law, and therefore they have this recommendation. They know how to find me because I give like each client an easy access. So they, you know, they just even have to Google me. It's pretty easy to find me. But yeah, and they come to me and say, you know, my sister-in-law worked with you, and then we decide what they need. So I'm pretty holistic in that I don't really do little bits and bobs. I do a whole kit and caboodle, because sleep is complicated. Otherwise, everybody would be nailing it, right? Or everybody would be sleeping great. All the kids are sleeping through the night early in the piece and it's all going well. Well, it's complicated, and there's quite a few elements that need to be working together to get into that beautiful spot. So I do all of it. So I look at the daytime, I look at the nighttime, I look at the family dynamics, I look at the age of the child, the development, like, you know, any health issues, any weight issues, all of that. So we literally just look at where they are at the moment and look at where we want to be, and then how we're going to get from there to there. So then I basically write up a plan, and this is how we're going to do it. And we meet, so they can meet in their own home. So if they're in my catchment area, I come to them, or we Zoom it. So I have to say the most popular is Zoom. I feel like us as a nation, we're really quite capable. We're good. We're doers. And I find that compared to, you know, this Sleep Sense group is worldwide. And so there's Americans, Europeans, everybody's in, you know, it's quite large. And in Australia, I definitely notice we're more like, we just get on with it. You know what I mean? So I find that people are very comfortable with Zoom. But some people want to see me, that I'm real, and want me to come to their house. So that's fine as well. So that's what we do. We meet and we go through that plan together. And we talk about how we're going to do this. What can you expect? What's the scenarios that are probably going to come your way? How to deal with them? How we're going to address kind of the nighttime sleep versus the daytime sleep, because we want it all working together. And then we're together for quite a while. So after our consult and we start the work, we communicate every day, and I'm actually in contact with them for 3 weeks in total. And that's really just to ensure that everything's rock solid. And it's such a learning process. They learn so much just about sleep, losing all anxiety around sleep, how to manage their days better. And as you were saying, it's all a domino effect. So if they've got their little person sleeping well, all of a sudden they've got this time to spend on themselves, to look after themselves. So that whole parenting journey that they're on is vastly different to what it was when they first started, or when they first came to me. So different. So there's quite a few factors that start to change our life when we're not sleeping well. And even if you didn't have children and you weren't sleeping well, there's so many areas that we suffer in. But imagine having kids and waking up on zero tolerance and having to look after them, keep these guys alive when we're running on empty.
Yeah. So
it's led me to going into a different stream. Like I'm doing those families, and I'll continue to do that. And I've got a consultant that helps me with those. But now my passion is really, for me, to look after those working parents that are in this situation and just suffering because they're having to show up every day, they're having to deliver, and they're running on fumes. So I'm hoping to make a difference there, in that employers start to recognize the struggle here. The employers, the companies, the businesses are experiencing adverse effects as a result, and really just going to the crux of it. Like, what's the crux of the issue? How can we help our staff in this position with young children at home and feel the positive change of everybody sleeping well?
And I promote a lot of sleep for wellness at work type things, and this, supports that perfectly. I want to go back a little bit to how. So I love that you work with the families. You might work with them over 6 months, might be 12 months, it might be an intense period to start with for your 3 weeks. regular contact. So can you give me an example, like little Johnny's not sleeping well and it's impacted a family of 5, and how would you work? What's some examples of what you would do when little Johnny not
okay.
What's some
So the number one thing when a little person comes to me is I want to see where they're at in their development with their sleep needs. So what are the needs that little being needs to be happy, to be feeding really well, to be thriving, growing, all the things. So that is my key focus at the beginning when I've got a family coming to me. I'm like, okay, so we need to get Peter, if he's 4 months, for example, just say he's 4 months old. Well, we need this little guy to be sleeping a beautiful consolidated night of sleep with a night feed. He'll generally have a night feed if he wants it. So we always follow the baby's lead, but typically there's a night feed at that age, and having adequate sleep in the day. So we know what he needs. So and I often go look in a 24-hour cycle and I say, this little guy, he really needs about 15, 16 hours of sleep. You know, that's this little Peter guy. So then we work out, okay, well, how are we going to do this? How do we manage that? I've got a 3-year-old and a 5-year-old, or whatever the case is. And I've got to work also. Okay. So when we start, we always want to have what normality is going to be. Like, you know, if there's daycare, we want to incorporate all of that. If there's a nanny, we want to incorporate. We want what's your normal life? I do say that we don't want to start it when you're going on a holiday in 5 days, or you've got events in the evening and things like that. We've got to really dedicate some time to get Peter really comfortable with his sleep, and then he becomes really adaptable. So it's really about things like that. So working out the days we're going to be doing drop-offs. So how do we manage that first nap of the day, for example, or the nap on pickup? And the reason I stay in contact for so long is I want mum or dad or both, whoever the caregivers are, to be really confident at the end of it and know exactly how they're going to easily manage their day. It's never going to be like perfect every single day. Like, it's not. But if they're getting all this sleep, doing like a breezy night feed in the night, no mess, no fuss, getting big blocks of sleep, and also then waking in the morning and knowing how I'm going to deal with this the best way we can. It just brings this, it's almost like, what am I trying to say? Like empowerment. It's like an empowerment, because parenthood is hard. We're often in wonder. We're not really sure. We're just cruising. We don't really know exactly how to manage everything. But if you're sleeping well and you know how to tackle that, that's huge. That just helps so much in all the other facets that come with parenthood. So yes, it's quite difficult at the beginning because we make a few changes, but actually then it's actually this really lovely journey. And then often the kind of feedback is that they loved it. They actually loved the journey. Yeah, there were some hard times, a bit of selective memory there, by the way, like it gets to all rainbows and they've got this awesome sleeper, so they forget the hard yards. But it isn't that easy at the beginning. And then it's more about just getting into a flow and feeling like you've got the confidence. And the big thing about Hushabye particularly is that we always set them up for the future. So you don't want to ever have to do that again. It's work. Like, it's took a bit to get to where they are, and you don't ever want to have to do that again. You want to be making sure that you're keeping things on track, and it's not difficult. You just got to know how to. And so that's our role too, that we make sure we have that education where they're able to keep going after we're done, we've wrapped up. And then they just follow and they take all that knowledge with them. So that just leaves them so empowered and feeling confident when it comes to the sleep needs of their children.
Because it's such a different concept, isn't it? Because I remember a number of my girlfriends needing to go to sleep school at a
Yeah.
hospital. So you're in for a couple of nights, and there's sort of,
Yes.
but then you take little baby home and in
I
amongst
know.
the family
I
again,
know.
and this is not working that well. So
I know. Look, it's look, that probably works for some.
yeah,
But I've had a lot of people that come to me who have already done that. Sleep school. And you're right, it's because the consistency is not there, but also they're not in their own environment as
yeah,
well.
yeah,
And that makes a big difference for baby and for them and for the parents. And, you know, you're not really living the scenarios that you get
yeah,
when you're living life with a young child.
yeah,
So, yeah, it often falls down. And another main kind of reasoning I'm finding that that isn't a longevity situation if they go to sleep school is because they often treat the issue that is currently happening, and they don't look at the underlying issue and again the crux of the problem. And the crux of the problem is that this little person isn't falling asleep on its own. So that's pretty much 90% of the time the issue. And some of those sleep schools are still encouraging mum and dad to be involved in that journey in some capacity. And it may be working temporarily, but it's not a longevity result. And that's why further down the line, particularly if they've gone early on, like earlier, maybe 4-month, 5-month-old bub, that they find at 7 months, 8 months, the tricks aren't working anymore.
yeah, right.
Yeah.
There's it needs. I'm so fascinated by this work, but you've got, you know, they're coming to you because they're in crisis mode or their sleep deprivation is huge and they want to get the routine going. So you come and you would, okay, assess the situation and then put some strategy in place and off you go.
Yeah.
People can come to you and we'll talk about your programs in a second. But what would you say to anybody listening would be the top 5 tips for getting babies settled, or the
okay.
get the family into some sort of settled state? What's some quick wins before they come and see you?
Yes, quick wins. Okay. So one of the really important elements is how much your baby can withstand of awake time. How long can they manage to be awake before they need the opportunity to sleep again? So there's some rough guides out there. If you Google it, you'll get a rough guide of how much awake time a baby at a certain age can do. You could definitely look at that. The only thing to remember is when they talk about awake time, it's usually when that baby is just like nailing it. So if that baby was 7 months, for example, and had slept through the night, then yes, that baby could do almost 3 hours awake time the next day in the morning. But what if baby didn't sleep through the night? So be very cautious that yes, you can use awake times and you should be using awake times, but compensate if there's any situation where that baby is waking multiple times in the night or that baby had a nap less than an hour. That baby cannot do that recommended awake time. So if you compensate, you'll find that sleep, whether it's nap or bedtime, will be better following that compensation. So that's one. The next one is to always look at their environment and think this: cool. The cooler they are, the better they will sleep. It's really, really common for people to overdress babies, have them in hot rooms, have heaters on. That's actually the creator of a lot of upset wakes, a lot of short naps, because they're overheating. So they can't regulate like we can quite yet. So if they get hot, they get very frustrated, very upset. If they're upset, they get even hotter. So you want to make sure they're in a very cool environment. And if you can't keep it super cool, just make sure that their sleepwear is very light. Dark room as well. So good environment, dark and cool. Another big tip is think about how these little people work. When you have babies, it's just a matter of, like, it is what it is. These guys have early bedtimes. You'll get used to it. You'll love it. You'll love having all this evening time to yourself. That is like one of my very favorite things about having young children. Yes, I love my full night sleeps. I love it, but I love that evening slot of time. So always think about that. These guys thrive on early bedtime. So I mean kind of between 6 and 7 is their perfect bedtimes. And if you put them to bed late and think, oh, cool, they'll just sleep in. No, they won't. They won't, because they don't run like us. They're not quite like us yet. They're 12-hour day, 12-hour night, and it's pretty much sunrise, sunset, so roughly 7-ish. And with daylight savings, you've got to simulate that. So how many tips have I done? 1, 2, 3. Did you want 3?
Oh, got any more? Got another top?
Oh yeah, I got more. So the other one is always follow what baby shows you. Always follow what baby shows you. So if you've got a little baby, just say you've got a newborn or a newborn that's coming into 3 months of age, and that little person has been doing a feed each night. So sleeping for a big block, doing a lovely night feed, sleeping for another kind of shorter block after that. Well, that's what the deal is for that little person. So you always want to follow the lead. You don't want to suddenly go backwards. So if that little person has been doing one night feed, all of a sudden having 2 night feeds is not where that little baby's going. It's always going in the forward direction. So if you can keep feeds happening for the fact that a feed is required, so calories are needed, you will stay on a much better journey. If feeds start to happen as a settling technique, or basically just not for the reason of feeding, you will fall down a rabbit hole there, because the baby will start to get confused. Okay, and the last one I'm going to say is what happens at daycare stays at daycare. Don't get stressed out about daycare. You've got a few things you can ask of them. They do their best. So, you know, here's my little person. He's due for a nap at 9:30. Here's his sleeping bag. Here's his teddy. If you could just leave him to it for when he falls asleep, he'll show them the way. And literally, that's all you can ask for from them. So that's another thing. Don't get too wrapped up. You can't control anything that happens at daycare. Your little person will do their best. And the days that they're home or those nights, do an early bedtime to help him compensate. And also you'll notice he'll do longer naps the next day at home to help compensate for that harder day before.
Perfect. Yeah, I love the info, and the top tips are fantastic, Amy. I think I'm just thinking, if anyone wants to get in contact with you, you do quite a few programs, and I know that there's a lot to cover in the programs itself. We might actually take that up in another little episode around more about the ways of working and getting the babies set, and then obviously the knock-on effect with the whole families. At the bottom of this, I will add in your email address and contact details and all that sort of stuff if people want to reach out and make contact with you. I'd just like to thank you very much for coming on and telling us all about sleep and getting families and babies settled. But thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me. Thank you so much. And yeah, they could just go to the website and you could see the offerings on the website. There's not a huge amount. There's just, kind of family and corporate offering to help working parents and families. So there's really 2 areas that we focus on.
Perfect. Thanks for joining me, and we'll catch you soon.
Thank you.
Bye.